Today on NewsWatch, GOP presidential hopefuls are demanding a new debate guideline. Hear why they're asking for the change. Plus, a holiday fire took the life of his mother, how this man used that tragedy to save the lives of countless others. And this mother's mission to warn parents about the danger of adults talking to children online. For her, the lesson came too late. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham.
And I'm Caitlin Burke. Representatives from most of the Republican presidential candidates held a kind of summit Sunday night. They plan to change the way future debates play out, specifically when the moderator appears to be hostile towards the GOP, like the CNBC debate in Boulder, Colorado. However, some of the more immediate criticisms actually directed at the Republican National Committee.
92%.
With 9 days until the next Republican presidential debate, the candidates are demanding some changes be made. Changes that would keep moments like this one at last week's CNBC debate from being necessary.
This is not a cage match. And you look at the questions. Donald Trump, are you a comic book villain? Ben Carson, can you do math? John Kasich, will you insult two people over here? Marco Rubio, why don't you resign? Jeb Bush, why have your numbers fallen? How about talking about the substantive issues people care about?
In a meeting organized by the Carson campaign, representatives from almost all of the other Republican campaigns gathered to discuss ways to take more control of debate formats.
Debates are supposed to be established to help the people get to know the candidates. What it's turned into is a gotcha.
How about we stop letting left-wing liberals moderate Republican debates?
The other major change? The campaign's plan to let the Republican National Committee handle only logistical matters when it comes to organizing the debates, arguing that the committee has failed to represent them effectively.
We're going to insist on opening and closing statement. We're going to negotiate directly with the sponsors about format.
The RNC is now doing damage control. On Saturday, they ordered a high-level shakeup of its debate negotiating team. Sunday's meeting is only the beginning of what could be some major changes to remaining presidential debates. The campaign's saying there will be more meetings in the future.
A Russian airliner lost speed Saturday before crashing into Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, killing 224 people. Russian investigators say the plane broke apart at high altitude, but so far have not named any possible cause for the crash. Russian officials have sent more than 100 rescue experts to assist in the search for the bodies and plane debris. Today, recovered remains so far have been flown back to Russia.
The mother of a Houston student says the school board is attempting to alter the story surrounding a conflict between her daughter and a teacher over a critical thinking assignment that challenged the student's faith. Jordan Woolley said the assignment supported the conclusion that God is a myth, and when she stood up for her faith, it led to a heated exchange with the teacher. Chantel Woolley told CBN News that school officials are trying to get other students to back the notion that her daughter, Jordan Woolley, was lying about the incident. The Katy Independent School District said it couldn't find any students that would corroborate the 7th grader's claim, but Woolley said that's not true. She maintains other parents and students contacted the principal to back up Jordan's story, but he didn't include that in his report. CBN News spoke with Jordan's mother about how these events have affected her daughter.
Jordan's faith has been tested through this. She stands strong, and she knows that she's speaking the truth. There's been some backlash by other students at the school. I don't feel like the school did anything to prevent her from being bullied at school, even though it's like anti-bullying month at the school, and Jordan felt bullied by her teacher directly in the class. She's been shaken up. She's had some emotional issues because of it, because she doesn't like to be called a liar when she knows she's telling the truth. But she stands firm, and I stand 100% with her.
You can see that full interview at our website, cbnnews.com.
A minister at a UK prison says he was pressured to resign after quoting the Bible in a chapel service. Reverend Barry Grayhorn worked as a gardener at a prison for sex offenders. Grayhorn is also an ordained Pentecostal minister and volunteered to help with chapel services. In May of this year, he spoke about repentance and forgiveness and quoted 1 Corinthians 6, the 6th chapter, verses 9 through 11, which mentions adultery and homosexuality. A few days later, someone filed a complaint. Barry was barred from chapel and he was told his comments were homophobic. He began to suffer harassment and eventually resigned. The Christian Legal Center is representing him in an employment hearing today.
You can see it on the news, the web, and in the headlines almost every day. Religious liberty is under serious assault in America. As Paul Strand reports, those who fight to keep that right fear it could be lost in the next 5 years, along with so much more Americans hold dear.
You've probably felt Christians are under attack more than ever before in the U.S. Now those fighting back have evidence it may actually be worse than you feared. They recently gathered in the nation's capital to sound the alarm.
We've actually had the calls to our office requesting, representation have increased by over 400% since that Supreme Court decision on same-sex marriage.
We were founded by men and women fleeing religious oppression and coming to this land to avoid precisely what is happening now.
Religious rights lawyer Kelly Shackelford heads up the Liberty Institute. It compiles a list each year of new religious hostility cases reported in America. 2 years ago, it totaled 1,600 cases.
Just in the last 2 years alone, that has increased by over 133%.
These folks on the battle's forefront warn much more is on the line here than a few people's religious sensibilities getting bruised.
The founders called religious freedom our first freedom for a reason. They knew that if you lost religious freedom, you'll lose all your freedoms. So when you see this explosion of attacks on religious freedom, it's a sign that your country's in trouble.
So much trouble, Shackelford's making a dire prediction.
I've been doing this for over a quarter century. We're either going to lose religious freedom or we're going to save it in the next 5 years.
Most of these attacks come from people who feel Christianity is so intolerant, some of its practices must be suppressed. But Shackelford thinks it's these attackers showing intolerance.
I think when you see these things happening, it's because somebody's intolerant, they don't respect religious freedom, and they think that they want to use the power of the government to force somebody to violate their conscience and faith. I think most Americans believe that's wrong, and it is.
Ironically, the very thing being suppressed is what this Christian lawyer says could save the nation.
The true answer, if you're going to turn your country around, is religious expression, is people sharing the truth that changes lives and that could change the whole country.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
The Episcopal Church is making history. The denomination installed its first black presiding bishop in a ceremony at the Washington National Cathedral this weekend. Bishop Michael Curry succeeds the church's first female presiding bishop, Catherine Jefferts Scory. Curry is 62 and he grew up in Buffalo. He served about 15 years in the Diocese of North Carolina until the church overwhelmingly elected him as leader last summer. The denomination has nearly 2 million members, but that membership has been shrinking amid tensions over Episcopal support of gay marriage.
Up next, a holiday fire took his mother from him as a boy. He's dedicated his life to keeping it from happening to others.
Former Tennessee Senator and Hollywood actor Fred Thompson died Sunday, perhaps best known for his roles in the films In the Line of Fire and The Hunt for Red October. Thompson also served 8 years in the U.S. Senate. The Republican won Al Gore's seat in a special election in 1994 and was reelected to a full term in 1996. In 2008, Thompson mounted a campaign for president but dropped out after poor early showings. Fred Thompson died of a recurrence of lymphoma. He was 73.
Nearly 40 years ago, a tragedy devastated young Mick Moffitt. But from the ashes of that terrible night arose a ministry that has helped save countless lives. Today, Moffitt runs the largest fire training academy of its kind. Angela Zatopek brings us his story.
Halloween 1976, a night that forever changed the Moffitt family.
From what we understand, our house was caught on fire from one of those jack-o'-lanterns that you sit in the windows. You remember the plastic?
As the flames spread, the father and 2 children managed to escape, but sadly their mother, Linda, did not. Despite his family's painful loss, young Mick gained something valuable that night.
From that point, what I really remember the most vivid images, are these 2 men that went up a ladder and actually brought me down to a safe place. They spent literally 20 minutes just trying to encourage me and just said, hey, this is our project right now for the next 20 minutes because we know his life's about to change.
With the compassion Mick saw from the firefighters as a young boy, Mick became a firefighter himself and had a vision to start his own fire training academy, which has now come to life in Crowley, Texas, called Smart Fire Training Division.
Right side, right side.
In only 13 years, Smart Fire Training Division has grown to the largest academy of its kind in the U.S., attracting recruits from all over the world.
I wanted to get into a culture where there was tradition, history, loyalty, respect.
We ask them, if you could describe what a firefighter is in one word, what would that word be? Character, honor, respect, integrity, servant, and teamwork. When I wrote them out, I noticed that the first letter of each one of those spelled Christ. And God just spoke to me quickly and he said, that is the pillars of wisdom. Those are the pillars that I want you to help incorporate.
Our mission at Training Division and in the fire service is really the same as the Christian faith, and that is to leave no one behind.
A major highlight of the school comes during the 2-week hands-on training for recruits. They invited me to experience the intensity and hard work.
Okay, so I am all decked out in my gear right now. We're about to go through 6 emergency scenarios that they could encounter during their career. Apparently, I have been chosen for the medevac helicopter routine. This should be interesting. Let's hit the field.
Okay, put this on your waist. Open.
As Smart Fire continues to grow, Mick leans on a lesson learned from one tragic night. How the selfless act of 2 men pulling him from a fire instilled into him the value of saving others. Angela Zatopek, CBN News, Crowley, Texas.
So inspiring that he was able to turn such a terrible night into
Absolutely.
such a great mission.
Absolutely. Firefighters are the bravest of all. Much appreciation for that work. Coming up, a mother who realized her 14-year-old had a dark secret on the day her daughter killed herself. The story is next.
A new study from the National Institutes of Health shows getting kids to cut back on added sugars in their food would show immediate health benefits, including better cholesterol readings and blood pressure, along with other improvements. And they could happen in as little as 9 to 10 days. The study replaced foods with added sugars in children's diets with foods that included other carbohydrates instead. The kids ate basically the same amount of calories, and they saw remarkable improvements in just 10 days. Some have argued that added sugars like artificial sweeteners increase the risk for serious diseases.
The third leading cause of death for young people between the ages of 15 and 24 is suicide. It's an important topic for parents to think about and discuss with their children before it's too late. For one Alabama mother, the pain of suicide became a reality after her 14-year-old daughter took her own life.
Now she's on a mission to warn parents about how strangers can influence the lives of their children, especially on the internet or even their smartphones. Charlene Aaron brings us that story from Pell City, Alabama.
Jennifer Sellers surrounds herself with memories and pictures of her daughter, Sydney.
She was beautiful. Took after her dad.
Their relationship appeared as close as any mother and daughter could be.
We went and got hair together. We did nails together. We did Walmart together.
Yet Sydney kept secrets. Those secrets would lead to tragedy on December 7th, 2014, when Sellers found her teenage daughter hanging from a belt in her bedroom.
It was such a shock that I opened the door and I said, Sydney, that is not a funny practical joke.
Only it was real.
I immediately ran into the room, and so I didn't have the strength to pick her up. That's when I started screaming for my husband. He picked her up. I cut her down. We laid her down on the ground, and he immediately started CPR, and I called 911.
Sellers, a child advocacy attorney, still struggles to understand why her daughter would commit such a drastic act, especially since she had shown no signs of depression or trouble. Even the morning of her death, Sydney gladly attended church with her family.
Went to Mass. Really proud that day. That was her first day as an altar server. So we were just excited, She's in the robes and she's going to be up on the altar, and she did a great job.
As word spread of Sydney's death, her family learned from friends that she had been bullied at school and had also been cutting herself. Yet nothing prepared them for an online conversation they discovered on Sydney's smartphone. At the time of her death, Sydney and a stranger had been messaging one another on an app called Kik. The subject, erotic asphyxiation, or breath control play, which is the intentional restriction of oxygen to the brain for the purposes of sexual arousal.
I mean, I've been married 17 years and I haven't had conversations like that with my husband. There was a conversation happening at the moment she died between her and a person who purported himself to be a teenage boy. And it was disgusting. And he was giving her instructions on things to do.
Sexually?
Yes, very sexually.
Many teens log on to the internet from the privacy of their own bedrooms, not from a PC, but from a mobile device, like a smartphone or a tablet. And they're often connecting with people they don't really know. And their parents are completely unaware.
Predators are everywhere on the internet. They know which sites kids tend to populate and go to. They pose as someone that a child might easily talk to.
Smartphone apps are often the weapons used to target kids.
They know how to lure these kids into what looks like harmless things and get them talking.
What parents need to realize is that your teens are living in an entirely different world on social media.
CBN producer Caleb Kinchlow showed us some of the popular apps used by teens to connect on the internet, often with strangers.
Facebook is not the most popular app like it used to be. Now it's Instagram, Snapchat, Uvu, Kik, Vine. Teens are more willing to share information that they normally wouldn't be comfortable sharing, including nude pictures, mature content, and things of that nature.
Seller says the man chatting with Sydney could not be traced because the Kik app allows users to connect anonymously. Today, this grieving mother spends time talking to troubled teenagers and encourages parents to keep up with their kids' lives, something she regrets not doing with her own child.
I had gotten complacent. My husband had gotten complacent. She went to school, she came back, she did her work, she made great grades. We figured we were good there.
Mental says parents need to monitor their kids' internet activity as much as possible.
They need to be able to look at every device and say, is there a way to access the internet from that device? Because a lot of people don't think about like an Xbox, being able to get on the internet from there. So you need to think about what devices do we have in the house? How is the access set up? What are the settings?
Sellers agrees.
Most parents are fine if their kids run off on their tablets or their phones for an hour before they have to get in the shower and go to bed. They're not monitoring that. If you bought that phone, if you pay for that phone, I don't care what they say about their privacy. That is your property. You have a right to know what's on it. Search it out. And you need to know what's going on with your kids' electronics.
A move that, while unpopular, just might save a life. Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Pell City, Alabama.
And you can find out more about this very serious problem and the steps parents can take to protect their children. Simply go to cbnnews.com.
Coming up, giving people back their homes, the ministry that's helping hurricane victims in Mexico. Operation Blessing is providing shelter for the victims of Hurricane Patricia in Mexico. Although Patricia dissipated quickly, it still damaged or destroyed many homes. Maria and her 11-year-old granddaughter Sarah were left without a safe place to live. Operation Blessing fixed their home and provided a new mattress and bedding to give them a safe, comfortable place to sleep. Teams are still working on site to provide safe shelter.
It is time now to pass along a little motivation for your Monday. The scripture says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So consider this. God has called you to do something no one else has done and no one else can do. It is a call and purpose exclusively on you. And when you answer it and fulfill it, it will bless multitudes. So wake up, rise up, be about your Father's business, and make this a marvelous Monday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here.
We would love to hear from you and hope you'll join us again right here next time. Once again, make this a marvelous Monday. We'll see you right back here come tomorrow.